Yeah, I have an island. This is just for inspirational, motivational uses only. You know what I'm saying? You don't know a lot of black men that come from the hood that got an island. I got an island. It's called Love Island. So when I took you to Love Island, and then you realize that the plane landed, and then we had to float to another island. What was going through your head when we were going there?
I was finally gonna go to war by this.
What was your favorite time that I took you off the grid? When you going off the grid with me, you got to go to sleep for a week.
Yeah, because it's definitely giving us sleep.
All of these big dick deviants is all catching hell in 2024. It's up for all of them. It don't matter if you Diddy or whoever you is.
I mean, Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me. Then next thing you know, okay, hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there, just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to you.
What if I told you that one of the biggest names in music was hiding something far darker than anyone expected? A private island, strange rituals, secret tunnels, and stories from people who were once close to him. This isn't just about music anymore. This is about what happens when power, money, and silence meet behind closed doors. Today, we're diving into claims made by Gene Deal and Terrence Howard about a place Diddy himself called Love Island, and why so many believe it was the center of something very disturbing. Recently, an old video resurfaced from an Apple Music interview where Diddy casually mentions owning an island. He's sitting across from Young Miami, and out of nowhere, he says, "Yeah, I have an island. You don't know a lot of black men from the hood that got an island. It's called Love Island." Now, most people would think he was just bragging, but what stood out wasn't just that he had an island. It was how he described what happened there. He said, the plane landed, and then we had to float to another island. Then he added, when you're going off the grid with me, you gotta sleep for a week. Yeah, because it's really giving me no sleep.
Your thoughts on this story here?
So it wasn't just this guy that was saying it. Lil Rod, the former producer, filed the lawsuit, and he said every room in Diddy's mansions were wired with cameras. And he had some of the footage, he had some of the pictures, and he displayed those in the lawsuit that came out. And this was used for blackmail material. They'd bring in these people. A lot of these people were also aspiring young artists in the music industry. And then these parties were sponsored by Motown Records CEO, Universal Records CEO. This goes all the way to the top. And so you get these people in compromising situations. The drinks were laced. Their videotapes were hot. And then at the end of the day, you wake up the next morning, what did I do? And then they have compromising material on you. And then they can guide your career. They could kill your career, but they got you. And it wasn't just people in the music business. As you said, there were athletes, there were celebrities, there were politicians, people from the royal family. And we were also told by the former bodyguard that Diddy was an FBI informant. Whoa. So he was a snitch and was feeding information to the feds. And we don't know what that means. We haven't been able to confirm it, but even Little Rod said it's not just like Epstein, it could be worse.
No sleep, off the grid, floating to another island. It sounds more like a hidden base than a vacation spot. People who watched the video started asking questions. Was Diddy's island just a place to get away? Or was it something more secretive? When someone says off the grid, it usually means no phone service, no tracking, no way to contact the outside world. Combine that with Diddy's wealth and connections, and suddenly that phrase sounds a lot more serious. And then there's the part about not sleeping for days. Was he joking? Maybe. But when you connect this to what some insiders have said about his private parties, the joke starts sounding more like warnings.
Was Sean Barrows, what's his first name? Whatever Barrows. They all had the same charge. They all had the same charge, bruh. But when those people from the street team to the security brought the people who said that they saw Sean shoot, who they said there was a witness against Sean, that helped free Wolf and Puff from any charges and any wrongdoing. You hear me? That helped free Wolf and Puff from any wrongdoing. So now, before we get to the courts, me and Puff stops in the, Central Park and we walk towards the boathouse. And I'm wondering where we going, bro. You know what I'm saying? We're in the park. I'm wondering where we going. And as we going towards the boathouse, I look in the distance and it's this man in all black. He's in all black. And he turns and it looked like he had the white collar. I couldn't be sure, I couldn't be positive, but it looked like he had the white collar because Puff said, yo, Gene, stay right here. And I stayed right there and he kept on walking. So when Puff gets directly to the dude, he gets down on his knees. When he gets down on his knees, this man takes something and it seemed like it had smoke in it and he started doing it around Puff. And then he went back and forth and then he went up and down with it, sideways with it, then back around him. And then he put it down and then he put his hand on Puff's head and I guess he started, saying something. I don't even really know what he said, but I couldn't tell what he said. You understand what I'm saying? Long story short, I see Puff reach into this case. And when he reached into this case, he came out and you could see something white in his hand. I didn't know it was a bird. I didn't know what it was at first, but he threw it up in the air. And when he threw it in the air, the came straight back down like it was a brick and said, bow on the concrete. And I was like, oh, that was a dove, that was a bird. Puff just got up. Puff just looked at the dude and just started walking towards me. And I was like, oh, and he's getting closer and he's getting closer. As he's getting closer to me, in my mind, in my cynical mind, I'm just like this. I'm thinking about Jason. I'm thinking about Damien and all that shit like that. And that nigga he just walked past me. He didn't even say nothing like, come on, Gene, let's go or nothing. He just walked past me and I just started walking with him. And I just said to myself, damn.
Gene Deal, who once worked as Diddy's bodyguard, has been one of the few people bold enough to speak out. In a Hulu documentary, Gene recalled something strange that happened before Diddy's 1999 shooting trial verdict. He said, Diddy went to Central Park early in the morning to meet with someone and perform a bird sacrifice. Now, we're not here to push conspiracy theories, but that detail is eerie. What kind of mindset leads someone to do something like that before a trial? And more importantly, was that the only time? If someone is doing that in public parks, what could they be doing in total privacy, away from cameras and witnesses on a private island?
Rappers, they're all so tough until you hear their real name.
Yeah, or until you see them at a Puffy party.
Oh.
Then they're not tough no more. I'm surprised that the rap game is still alive because the masculinity that the rappers are supposed to portray.
Yeah.
How I see what's happening, the parallels with what's happening, correlates what's happening in the business. If they, back in the times of slavery, if they had like some 12-year-old slave that was just full of himself and confident and, wasn't listening, they would tie him to a log or a barrel. And a bunch of the overseers would to where when he walked around with the slaves now, he didn't have the confidence.
Sure.
He was broken. And it was called breaking the buck.
Wow.
And that's still taking place. And so to hear that people in the industry are still making young rappers who have fought the worst of circumstances, being disenfranchised, being discounted, and then they finally like, I'm gonna put it into the music. I'm gonna do it in the music, and I'm gonna, and get myself together. And they go and see someone, and they tell them, okay, yeah, you can have a deal. Perform fellatio on me, and you get your deal. That was what I heard while I was on Empire about some of the people in the business. And Petey Pablo, you remember Petey Pablo?
I know who that is.
Petey Pablo, talented writer, singer. Him and Young Buck wrote a song called Ho Is On. And in that song, back in about 2011 or 29 or something, because he called out all of the homosexuality taking place at those parties and those people, he was kicked out of the music business. No radio station would play his stuff. So you look for Petey Pablo, he's not around anymore. But that song, Ho It's On, they did not care. They went all in on it.
Terrence Howard, the Oscar-nominated actor, has also stepped into the conversation. While he hasn't directly confirmed anything about the island, he's made comments about the music industry being built on controlling artists and hiding dark truths. In his words, they break you down and then own you. Fans started connecting the dots. What if Terrence was hinting at something deeper? Something that connected back to the rumors of freak off, parties, underground tunnels, and unexplainable disappearances from the spotlight?
And Terrence goes into this conversation about having to do certain things to get to where you are in Hollywood and the regret associated with having to do those things. All right?
For real. And then there's a point where guys get so much they're just like, oh,
Yeah, well, it would have been that, but they would have wanted to do that, and I wouldn't have been able to do that. It wouldn't.
Well, you mean you couldn't kiss a guy on screen in a movie?
No.
Not even, yeah.
No, because I don't fake it. I literally, it has to.
I couldn't kiss a man either. That's true. And that does not.
That would
not
I
make
would
me,
cut my lips off.
Yeah, no. Well,
I would.
Okay,
if I kiss some man, I would cut my lips off.
Well, I would not do that. But it does not make me homophobic to not want to kiss a man. Just like lots of gay men are like, you know, I mean, that's okay. We all have our own, no one wants to tell you how to.
Do what you love to do, but don't do it at me. Don't aim it at me. And I can't play that character.
Right.
100%. I can't.
Right.
I can't surrender myself to a place that I don't understand.
Yeah.
And so that's the end part of that story of what I had to
I can
let
understand.
go.
I can understand it. I'm just not of it. I mean, I could certainly understand men attracted to men. I mean, homosexuality is in nature. Animals. There are animals. Many, many, many animals.
Yeah, the bonobos, the bonobo monkeys, they practice it.
Well, practice it.
They do. All of them. Their whole the whole colony, everything. The bonobos, the entire interaction is.
Can't be all of it if they still make.
No, but they still do
making
that. But it's seen in there. It's seen in those places. But for me, what my constitution of what matters as a man for me, that's the part that I can't.
Maybe the bonobos are gay. Every once in a while, the bonobo thinks he should try, like Elton John when he married that girl in 1989. I mean, we all knew it wasn't going to work, but you got to give it a shot. Who knows?
I said that to Lee Daniels once we were on set shooting Empire.
Multiple reports, including some from guests and former employees, have described Diddy's private gatherings as wild, secretive, and heavily guarded. These weren't your average parties. People talked about red rooms, hidden cameras, and guests who didn't always seem willing to be there.
50 Cent is saying Jay-Z is going to be exposed next after Diddy. So Jay-Z had a close relationship with Diddy throughout his career. And 50 Cent pointed out that Jay seems to be missing after all the raids rained down on Diddy. Jay-Z was allegedly named on Epstein's client list. Epstein is a prolific child predator who would serve up underage girls to the elites. Epstein would fly out his clients and the girls to a private remote island in the Caribbean where they could get away with it and the girls couldn't escape because they were surrounded by sharks. It's been rumored Jay-Z had his own private island where the same stuff went down with Diddy, and we haven't seen the footage until now. And the similarities to Epstein are startling. It's in a remote part of the Caribbean and it has a landing strip. After Diddy's private jet landed in the Caribbean, it suspiciously went off the radar. So users are suspecting Jay's private island is where Diddy disappeared to, or at least hiding evidence. And they are also suspecting that this is where the hip-hop Predator ring occurred.
But what we do know is that 2 properties associated with him, we saw the feds descend on those properties. We saw on aerial footage, federal agents both here in the Los Angeles area as well as in Miami at those residences. Now, the Department of Homeland Security, their what's called HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, gave CNN a statement. I'll read you part of that when asked about what this activity is. They say that earlier today, HSI New York executed law enforcement actions as part of an ongoing investigation with assistance from HSI Los Angeles, HSI Miami, and our local law enforcement partners. That is it, confirming that they are conducting what they're deeming law enforcement action, which could indicate search warrants being conducted there, could indicate arrests being conducted. We just don't know at this hour specifically what that law enforcement action is. It is worth pointing out, though, that Combs himself obviously has faced significant legal woes in recent months. I'll give you just a kind of the highlights of what actually occurred. In November, he was sued for use by a former partner. That lawsuit was then settled very quickly, but in December, he faced allegations in a complaint filed in the Southern District of New York. The suit was brought by a woman referred to as Jane Doe, who said that she was 17 at the time when these allegations took place back in 2003. He was accused of trafficking and among other allegations, also in that suit naming 2 of his associates. Of course, Combs denied any wrongdoing there. And then just last month, a former employee of Combs filed a suit also in the state of New York, accusing him of assault, of harassment, and, quote, grooming. That former employee stated that he had worked for Combs between 2022 and 2023. Among those allegations, this former employee, a male employee, said that Combs did not compensate him for his music production work and forced him to procure and interact with sex workers, threatened him with serving alcoholic beverages laced with drugs to guests at parties at Combs' home. And then Combs' son, Justin Combs, was also accused of soliciting and underage girls at his father's homes. Again, the Combs have denied any wrongdoing, but just a series of allegations that we've seen taking place. Final point, Wolf, I'll note, is that while we don't know the specific allegations or why the feds are at these residences, it is worth pointing out the agency that is conducting this law enforcement activity. It's not the FBI, it's not the DEA or the ATF. This is HSI, Homeland Security Investigations. For those unfamiliar, this is an agency that has long been the forefront, specifically at human trafficking investigations.
A federal agent even said that some rooms in his Miami mansion were filled with gear and gadgets, all wired with cameras. And if you were in one of those rooms, chances are you were being watched from every angle, even ones you didn't know existed. These same agents claimed that Diddy would sometimes watch remotely from another room, or even from his phone.
They had property in New York, property in Miami, and a property in LA, all simultaneously hit. Those different agencies had to get together, plan that, and that's not no bull. You know, that's a lot of manpower, a lot of money. So they want to know how they spent the taxpayer. The taxpayer's gonna know why you spending my money on this to come up with nothing. So you best believe they had something in the first place to go up in there, either through, like I said before, wiretaps. You understand? Because if they convinced the judge that they need a warrant, they had wiretaps, surveillance, and different things that was going on. And then, like, it's a lot of crazy statements that have been made. And you got to look at that interview that Jonathan Odie did, bruh. You know what I'm saying? That was probably more damaging than Cassie. And that was more damaging than Cassie, because check this out. He said Diddy was transporting liquid cocaine on his private jet. Now, the DEA wasn't involved in this. It was the FBI and the Homeland Security, basically. That's because of the trafficking thing. But if they find any of that stuff in any one of his houses, there's a problem. Even if they find illegal guns, the constitutional right goes the right to bear arms, but he got to have licenses for that shit. So if anybody got illegal guns up in there, if they find any kind of drugs to a high amount, cocaine and weed, I don't think Diddy gonna get charged because what he did. He put everything in his kid's name and his company.
Did you see the video of his kids in handcuffs?
Yeah, that's a tactical thing. The kids being in handcuffs is a tactical thing that law enforcement use, you understand, hoping that people who've never been in handcuffs before, that it either scares them or want to make them talk. There's no reason after they searched those kids, because they didn't have a search warrant for bodies. They had a search warrant for like materials, laptops, telephones, logs, pictures, tapes. You know, that's what they search warrant is for. They didn't have a search warrant for bodies. So those kids, when they came out, they should have searched them. And then, listen, y'all sit down right there. That was a tactical move to get them to talk and to scare them into saying something, by keeping them handcuffed like that. They didn't have to do those kids like that. None of those kids have, that I know of, criminal cases against them or known for criminal activity. So there was no reason for them to do that. If them was the damn Rockefellers or somebody else, they wouldn't have had their kids handcuffed like that. But you gotta realize their father has painted a crazy picture to the authorities. You understand? It's a crazy picture and people don't realize this, brother.
So again, if this kind of setup existed in his homes, what do you think was happening on that island? Earlier this year, when authorities raided Diddy's LA mansion, they reportedly found a secret tunnel. A hidden underground path inside a millionaire's home raises big questions. Why build something like that? Tunnels are built for one reason: secrecy. And if there was a tunnel here, could there be tunnels under Love Island too? No one knows for sure, but the possibilities are hard to ignore. A recent Peacock documentary titled The Making of a Bad Boy promises to take viewers deep into Diddy's private world. Some of the people interviewed in the trailer claim they witnessed everything, especially the red rooms and what they represented.
Yes, there were shrines used for rituals. There's bloody places. There's parts where there's limbs. People cut off limbs and want you to have. There's blood that I don't even know who it belongs to. There's a lot.
So hang on. So someone like the people that you've named are here at these shrines where there is human flesh, bones, human body parts, and they want people to participate in orgies in amongst all of this human blood. Is that a satanic ritual feces? Is this a satanic ritual that they are participating in?
Yes. Yes, there's people who want to, there's people, animals, dead animals. I was taken and told that I had to give a blow to Biden.
So Joe Biden was there at this shrine.
Mm-hmm. Something happened. I don't know what happened. I was down there for a while. There's certain people that you don't talk about because you just don't. There were certain people that I seen down there, from Beyonce, Jay-Z, you don't tell on P. Diddy, but P. Diddy,
So you said you don't tell on these people. Is that like a code that all victims adhere to? They don't talk about this stuff?
yes, you don't, because nobody's gonna believe you. You're nothing to them. You don't count. You're just a toy. You're not essential, as they call them. You're expendable. And as a child in that situation, I wasn't the type of person that was fighting all the time, because I started to learn who I was. I started to learn my pimp. I started to learn what I was in. I started to learn that you don't fight. You watch what you say, you watch what you do. And at some point I stopped fighting people, and I started to accept the fact of what I was told, that I was special enough to be with this person. I was special enough to be in the eyes of a celebrity or somebody who's on the radio or on TV, and I accepted that.
The new P. Diddy documentary came out today on Peacock. It's about how Sean Combs became Puff, or P. Diddy, about how he rose to power and became a monster. And this documentary gets told by a bunch of people that were close to Diddy, like friend, bodyguard, producer, makeup artist, intern. The doc goes all the way back to Diddy's childhood. And we hear from Tim Patterson, who was basically like a brother to Diddy. They grew up on different floors of the same house. This is Tim here, and then this is Diddy. He talks about Sean Combs before all the fame and the power. Then we learn all about Diddy's rise to power and how he became a music mogul. And it had a lot to do with him starting a record label called Bad Boy Records, which explains the title of the doc. Then from there, we go into the extremely dark and disturbing part of the documentary. And this part of the doc goes way beyond his now famous parties. We hear stories from women about the absolutely horrible things that Diddy did. This part of the doc might be extremely hard to listen to and watch. Then the doc also gets into some theories surrounding Diddy, like him possibly having something to do with the death of his longtime girlfriend Kim Porter, or even him having a role in the hits on Biggie and Tupac.
They showed clips of Jaguar Wright. You had Gene Deal talking. You had the lawyer, the one lady, Ariel, speaking. And then it was some people he grew up with, you know, who was right next to him as he rose to the top. But the one that stood out to me the most, and that I was waiting for, was I'll Be Sure. I'll Be Sure, who is Quincy's father, one of Diddy's sons, who was also with Kim Porter before Diddy.
Several aviation forums and private jet tracking communities reported unusual flight patterns. Multiple chartered jets flying to remote locations in the Caribbean under shell corporation names loosely linked to bad boy affiliated entities. Now, there's no public record of Love Island on standard registries. But that's not surprising when the ultra wealthy want something kept quiet. And then came the comparisons. People started looking at the similarities between Diddy's rumored island and Jeffrey Epstein's infamous Little St. James. Both places are shrouded in secrecy. Both have been hinted at in documentaries, and both allegedly hosted high-profile figures for events that most of the public would never be allowed to see.
The Jeffrey Epstein Island has one of the most disturbing histories in America. Nobody really knows the full truth behind it. The island was owned by millionaire Francis Sheldon. Him and a number of local men from Michigan, including this guy, Gerald S. Richard, ran a boys group on the island. So what would they do? They would fly kids on this airstrip to the island. Parents were told that the island was for fun and for the kids to relax. Keep in mind that this camp was literally ran for years. Well, eventually the kids started telling their parents that these counselors or teachers were actually behaving in very inappropriate ways to them. The kids were then told to go into these cabins where the counselors would tell them to take their clothes off.
But they also reported that, Homeland Security, when they raided Diddy, they was looking for the footage that Diddy was using to blackmail celebrities. How do you feel about that?
Well, you got to look at this. They looking for anything. It's not just Lil Rob lawsuit, the blackmail stuff. Like, they can't do that. They said that it was for, they went in there on the premises that it was for trafficking and underage minors in there. So now, if everything is being taped and he's taping people doing this and they find it in their house, they got to bring the tapes back to him. They got to make sure that he's the one walking around with the video camera. If he's, you understand what I'm saying? They got to prove that. And then they got to have people to come in and say that he did that. They saw him with the video camera, like Lil Rob said. He used to tape him on the phone and all that stuff like that. Maybe he had burnouts or something like that. We don't know. But when they do that raid, they ain't just looking for pictures. Whatever they find drugs, it goes to the DEA case. If they went down in the wine cellar and they found cases of Surcock with cocaine in it, coca in it, they're gonna get that to the DEA. They find a lot of guns and stuff like that, that's ATF. A lot of different agencies can get involved. Just on going on there on the freaking case. It's whatever they find in there, bro. They're not just gonna limit themselves to that one thing once they got the search warrant to go in.
It's no secret that Diddy rubbed shoulders with the elite, from politicians and billionaires to industry moguls with global influence. And if even a fraction of the rumors about what went down on that island are true, the implications could stretch far beyond hip-hop. Some viewers also noticed how quickly certain online posts about Love Island were taken down, especially when they mentioned names of potential guests or hinted at flight manifests. That kind of censorship only fuels suspicion. If there's nothing to hide, why try so hard to erase the evidence?
Diddy tunnels are real. Dude, shout out to Ali Carter, number one and foremost. Shout out to Ali Carter, man. Ali is the one that brought to my attention. She brought to my attention about these tunnels. Yeah. Nah, homie. I like that. Shout out to Charleston White. But check it out, man. Real talk. Diddy's tunnels are real. They saying that Diddy has tunnels going from the Playboy mansion to his house, to other people's houses and all this stuff. I don't think it's against the law to have a tunnel, right? It ain't against the law to have these tunnels, but it sure enough make you look more and more guilty. You know, it ain't against the law to have a tunnel, but god dang, dog, are you serious?
There's a storm brewing, and while no one's been officially charged in connection with Love Island, the pieces of this puzzle are starting to form a chilling image. When people with power operate in the shadows for long enough, the truth doesn't stay buried forever. So maybe the question isn't if something happened on that island, but who knew about it? And for how long? Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you like this video, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss out on any new videos. And until then, fam, keep it real.